The Stream's global US election watch party. Tonight we're joined by voters and some international bloggers and journalists who've been following this election very closely. To cap off the end of the race, we'll be looking back at some of the biggest stories of this very long campaign. We're also monitoring what voters are saying online, and we'll be keeping you updated on that as well. It's a stream party, so we're joined by people from around the world, and they have a lot to say. With us in the United States, Philip Klinker. He is Professor of Government at Hamilton College in New York. Hello, Phil. Demetrius Snell. Hello. Political commentator.
Hello.
Coming from the state of Texas. Jonathan Marcantoni is an editor and publisher for the bilingual publisher La Casta Grande in the state of Colorado. Kirsten Han is a Singaporean journalist. Hi there, Kirsten. And in Moscow, Russia,
Hi.
Victor, hello there, Lavanov. He's a political blogger and a consultant. It's good to have you here, everybody. Now, before we officially get started with our party conversation, I want to take a minute just to check out some of the biggest stories that we've been following online on the stream today. Now, even with all of the talk about the election monitoring, the voting process still didn't go smoothly for everybody. Twitter users online were very quick to report issues ranging from long lines, lack of pens, and misinformation. The American Civil Liberties Union in Michigan came out today against false information about the ability to vote online. On top of the logistical issues, voters have been tweeting about the discrimination they faced when going out to vote, mainly Muslim Americans. Some began using the hashtag Islamophobia at polls after a man in the US state of Michigan reportedly tried to block two women in hijabs from casting ballots. And in other areas of the US, voters shared similar experiences. Khaled tweets, somebody shouted Muslim go back home at his friend's mother, while Serene tweeted about another voter's reaction to her hijab, asking her, what's that thing? Jana says that she was asked how long she planned on staying in our country, but many online expressed support for those who face difficulties at the polls and called on voters to stand up for Muslim Americans. Now, Muslims weren't the only ones experiencing challenges. Some disabled voters shared their problems with access. Elizabeth tweeted, no wheelchair accessible voting booth. Inquiries for one were met with blank stares, but still this Cripps ballot is in. We've covered stories like this all month, and you can check them out at the hashtag StreamAlex. So everybody, those are the stories that kind of jumped out at us today as you've been sort of monitoring the voting, the polls. What stories jumped out at you? Jonathan, you can start. What was the, what's going on here?
What? No,
Yeah,
what seems to be going on is that that maybe we had a real problem with voter apathy. And I'm really worried with these results that the Trump people were more enthusiastic, or that even some of the left-leaning progressives like myself decided to stay at home because they didn't get the candidate they really wanted. So I'm a little worried looking at these results so far.
Phil, for you, I mean, you're looking at this election in a very detailed academic way. Was there something that jumped out at you when you said, this is the big story of the day, this is it?
Well, I think the big story of the day is once the results started coming in, I think the general consensus in the media community here was that Hillary Clinton had a pretty stable, not large, but a comfortable enough lead, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 points, which was more than Barack Obama had at this time in 2012. But the election so far has been a nail biter, and Trump's doing a lot better than anybody expected. I think at this point, toss a coin whether it's going to be Trump or Clinton as president tomorrow.
Demetrius.
And it's pretty remarkable to have this candidate who's so incredibly qualified could be beaten by somebody who's such a outward bigot when she has so many more qualifications than him.
Did I hear a sigh? Did I hear someone sigh? Who was sighing?
That was me. I think, and I posted it on my Facebook, and it's getting a lot of likes. But I told someone I think people doubted the fact that so many people has hatred within this country just for the progress of others. You have to remember, America is a country that kind of repressed people, and those people who back in the 50s and 60s, their children and them. They started to see the progress of people of color. So right now, we're seeing a push in those voters coming out into the polls. So that's why, like our professor said, Trump is doing a lot better than we expected, because no one expected those voters to come out and vote, because they've been so silent for the last 40 to 50 years after the whole civil rights movement thing, and thinking that there was no candidate out there to hear their voice. So now they see a candidate who is out speaking for them, and now they have a reason to come out and vote. So that's what's going on right now. That's why the lead that Trump has is growing, and that's why everybody, like, I'm sitting here like looking crazy, like I was not expecting this election to be like this. I'm like, it's 10:18 Eastern Standard Time, 9:18 my time. I'm like, I expected this election to be kind of almost called by now. I wasn't expecting Trump to win Florida. I wasn't expecting it to be so close in Virginia, because the last time I checked, Trump had a lead in Virginia. And if we all know, Virginia has been a blue state for the last couple of elections. And on top of that, the governor of Texas is Hillary's running mate. I mean, of Virginia, is Hillary's running mate.
Well, ex-governor.
Former governor.
But hey, Demetrius, if I could just add on to that, because I absolutely agree with what you're saying about bigotry in this country, and I think if anything, what we're seeing is the whole myth that after Obama was elected, that somehow we were in a post-racial society. That myth has been completely torn down. Now, of course, for minorities, we knew it was always a myth and it was BS. But for a lot of these, for a lot of the white public, even progressive whites, they really tried to cling on to that. Like we were somehow beyond, 200 some years of pretty constant oppression and violence toward minorities.
Well, and I wouldn't
and
even
that's
say
just
200.
not the case.
We have 40 years of oppression. I mean, a lot of the, we just came out of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. I just read a story about a 107-year-old woman who lived through all of those times, whose parents were slaves. So I'm like, we're not that far away from the oppression of people, and those people who still see America as, this is my country. Because right now that's where we are with this election. Is one half of the country is, we're all for everyone is for everyone, and then you have the other half of the country that's like, well, my family was here, this is my country, you go back to your country. But what they don't realize, and I always say this to coworkers and friends, is that we're all immigrants. Some of us have been here since the 1800s. Some of our families just got here, and I'm like, a lot of the people with the most hatred, they're like, their grandparents were immigrants. So I'm like, you're like a generation or two away from being an immigrant. And I look at Trump, his grandfather couldn't come out of Germany because they thought he had ties to the Nazi Party.
So his
father came into the country, and that made him, he was born here. So I'm like, you're like literally one generation away from being an immigrant yourself.
Interesting.
And your wife is an immigrant.
But what you see right there is actually something that we see in the Latino community, where just after a generation, these kids, they completely have abandoned their ancestors' homelands, and they don't even consider themselves Guatemalan or Mexican or Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever.
So Jonathan, Phil was just about to jump in there. Phil, go on, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Trump's mother was an immigrant. She was born in Scotland and came over here when she was a teenager. His grandfather was born in Germany. His father was actually born here. So I think the point is that, you don't have to go back very far in many families to find immigrants in the United States. But, I don't think this began with Trump. I think that this was a backlash that has been sort of welling up since the civil rights movement in the 1960s. I think it sort of gained steam in the 90s with increased immigration. I think the next step was, at least among some white Christian Americans, a real sort of fear of Muslims, both in the United States and abroad. And then suddenly in 2008, this guy named Barack Hussein Obama becomes president. And that was the sort of, sum of all fears for them, because suddenly for people that are concerned about race, concerned about immigration, concerned about Islam, you have a black American that they think is a Muslim, that they think is an immigrant, is now president. And to them, it really sort of drove home this idea that sort of culturally what they thought of as America had really changed immensely. I think a lot of people thought it had changed permanently, but as it becomes increasingly likely that Trump wins, I think this is going to be very contested.
Philip, say that again. Say that again, what you just said, that last line there. What makes you say that?
That is going to be increasingly contested? because it's looking more and more like Trump wins and he becomes the president.
Interesting.
And, presidents set agendas.
All right, so everybody, you can't tell this from looking at our watch party, but everybody is monitoring the results as they come in. So full disclosure, everybody, I love how you're doing. You're doing stealth watching. I'm not even going to say some of the places that you're watching it, okay, but you are watching it. Kirsten, how are you keeping up with what's going on right now, even as you're talking to us? What's your source?
I've got a New York Times website with the live updates coming in. So one page is open to the front page with the map, and the other page is open to the 3 forecast meters that they have, which is quite nerve-wracking because the forecast meter says it's an 81% chance of Trump winning, which is the exact opposite of the percentage of people in Singapore polled who would have voted for Hillary. Like about 84% of Singaporeans polled said that they would rather Hillary won. And, 81% of Singaporeans polled said they would rather invite Hillary to dinner than Trump. So it's kind of worrying right now to see what the result is like. I definitely wasn't expecting to be looking at a map like this right now.
Does it make sense to you? Is there anything that you want to ask our guests who are here in the United States that you don't understand from Singapore?
Well, I think as a Singaporean, the first thing is, why the heck is this election so long? I think, the U.S. has been, since the U.S. has been talking about elections and candidates, we've had a general election, elected like almost 90 people in the parliament, and then moved on, and it's been like almost a year now. And so, from Singapore, it's just, this election has gone on for forever, and it kind of feels like we've kind of limped to this day because everyone I know is so exhausted by being inundated by news about the elections.
I'm just have a comment, like a man also outside US, about what you think about these elections and what not to understand. The main thing that I can't understand is like how men like Trump can move from like guy with strange statements came to the favorite of these elections tonight. Because in our country we also have this kind of politicians, but we think that they're like clowns, and when time came to the elections, some Russian people understand that it's not serious, so they vote for other people. So that's not, I cannot understand, and all Russian people cannot understand.
What I'd like to jump in with is just, when I was in Japan back in 2013, and that was around the time that they were debating about government shutdown, which did eventually happen. Obama missed an Asia Pacific meeting with several countries in the Asia Pacific region, and the premier of China, I think it was Premier Zhu, he gave a speech saying how this is a clear sign that the U.S. is slipping in its global dominance, and I think that this election is really showing that. It's showing that we're in a stage of decadence because our public largely does not trust institutions. It doesn't trust the government, and so they put faith in people with no governmental experience.
I would honestly say you're completely right, and it seems like that 2010 election, and though that group of senators and congressmen that won from the Tea Party, many who didn't have any experience and many who came in with the idea of, I'm going to do everything I can to not make sure that nothing passes that this president goes through. I thought that was a big issue for me because literally our country, for all of the time that it's been a country, has ran off of bipartisanism. Being bipartisan and being able to reach over into the aisle and tell, and talk to your Republican constituent or your Republican friend and try to get a bill passed. Right now, we're in a climate in this country where if I'm a Republican, I'd rather not vote for that Democrat bill, or I'm gonna lose the next primary election, or I may lose my next Senate run, because we've seen that happen before. I can give you a perfect example with Chris Christie, when the big tragedy happened with with Hurricane Sandy. Yeah, and you know, Chris Christie, the thing that he did was he embraced President Obama for coming to his state and making sure that everything was all right. And he got a lot of backlash from that. And I was like,
and Demetrius, for our international viewers, Chris Christie is the governor of New Jersey.
He's the governor of New Jersey. Yeah. Yes, he's the governor of New Jersey, and he was also one of the people running for the primary, the Republican primary.
Yeah, and then for that other question that Kirsten posed, Philip, which was about why was this election so long? Why did it seem so long, this entire campaign?
All of our elections are long. Part of it is the United States has a federal system, and we sort of, rather than making national decisions, we have a series of state primaries and caucuses, and that takes a long time. They generally don't want to sort of have a national primary election that you could do fairly quickly. Yeah. And it's just sort of part of the American tradition that's built in. I think if we had a parliamentary system, you could probably run sort of snap elections where you're campaigning for a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. But we have this long sort of process in which we let voters in each state decide on the delegates that'll go to the convention, and that adds on a couple of months to it, and then the general election takes a couple months. I would say that the general election is probably about as long as you see in a lot of parliamentary systems in terms of their elections. It's just that we have this very long primary and caucus system.
Right. I was about to say that that primary is always the thing that drags our election. Is the primary. We've been at it for about 18 months now, and as you can see, July is when both candidates accepted their nominations, and we're in November, so it's like three to 4 months is the regular election.
All right, I'm going to get one of you to give me a check on what's happening in the watch party, so you can look at your surreptitious source and tell me. Who wants to tell me? Jonathan, go on. You take the next one. What's the update?
Did I really look like I wanted to answer? Yes, I did want to answer.
Yeah, go on. Where are we?
No, it's looking like Clinton has 109 electoral votes and Trump has 150.
Yeah, Trump just won Ohio.
All right. We really are watching and partying. All right, I want to take us down a little bit down memory lane, the high and the low moments for you. Let me start off with this because it's just kind of amusing, and we have an international audience as well as a domestic audience watching. And it takes us to a gentleman called Gary Johnson, who's the head of the Libertarian Party, and some international foreign policy. Have a listen to this.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo?
About
Aleppo.
And what is Aleppo?
You're kidding.
No.
Aleppo is in Syria. It's the epicenter of the refugee crisis.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Well, with regard to Syria, I do think that it's a mess.
I'm not sure if that was a good recovery or not. Victor, what did you make of that when you heard that?
You know that Syria for Russian people is like the top theme of our media because we take part in a broad military conflict, maybe first time since Soviet Union break. So it's for us it's really serious time. I think even grandmother in some Russian village know
could tell you what Aleppo is.
Syria. So this reaction for me is like, oh my God, what he said.
Yeah.
Like this.
But what I wanted to pair it up with was something else that Jill Stein said, who is also another third-party candidate. Have a look here, because there was another slight snafu that Gary Johnson had, which was on MSNBC, I believe. He was like, name your favourite foreign leader, and he couldn't name any. So Dr. Jill Stein basically trolled him on Twitter. And I feel like this election is the election of candidates trolling each other. Like they were 5-year-olds. I mean, everybody trolling each other. Demetrius, you're laughing. Do you want to kind of pick a moment for you, which was like, wow, golden troll? Demetrius, hold on 1 minute. We're just going to go to our Al Jazeera live coverage here for Kamal, and we'll come back to you. Hold tight, everybody.
Insurmountable for Hillary Clinton in Ohio. And if you want to know how close this gets and how important this win is, look at the state history. We've got the last 3 elections for you to look at. There was only a 2% split back in 2012. It was a bit bigger, but again, that was the big sweep to power by Barack Obama. George Bush got it by 2% in 2004. Ohio is important. Ohio is the bellwether state. Ohio has gone to Donald Trump. When we add it on to his tally on the map so far, we get him up to 168 electoral college votes and 109 for Hillary Clinton. This is another call of one of our swing states. We had New Mexico before, we have Ohio now. It has gone to Donald Trump. It's quite an extraordinary call at this point. Well, on this knife edge that we see.
All right, so just taking a brief break just to catch up with what Jazeera.com is doing. Demetrius, we were talking about trolling and candidates trolling each other. What did you make of that? What was your sort of favourite moment or your facepalm moment where you're like, is this really happening?
I guess my whole facepalm moment to me is the whole election, but it was the debate where Hillary and Donald Trump were kind of like throwing jabs like they were 5-year-olds. It was the second debate, and Donald Trump said something of the Hillary said something of the nature of Donald has issues has issues with something, and Donald Trump comes back and says something crazy, and then the whole part where he calls her a nasty woman on national TV, and it just blew my mind because I'm like, who says that on national TV about not just another candidate of a different party? It's like it shows the intensity of this election. This isn't like friendly debate, friendly a friendly challenge. It seems like it's like two real enemies who have a sort of hatred for themselves and for each other, and it baffles me. And that was like the face palm. I guess the debates for me was the face palm moment.
Phil, as you're watching this as a serious sort of political academic, and you're seeing this all playing out, it's all part of the narrative for the election campaign. What do you make of it?
I think this is a big surprise. I think nobody really sort of expected this. Hillary Clinton's had a pretty stable lead in all the national polls over the last couple of months. She got a little closer at the end, but she seemed to be pulling away. Right now, I'm just sort of looking over the maps and looking at sort of strategies.
Yeah.
This is now that Ohio's for Trump. Clinton needs to win Virginia. She needs to hold on to Wisconsin and Michigan, and she's almost certain to win the West Coast states: Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, and then it's going to come down to Nevada. She needs to sort of do that. We're going to be up pretty late tonight trying to figure out who won this race.
Right.
I have a question for you, if
sure.
it's okay. You know that all Russian media, like joking about U.S. media that they made Clinton like a favorite of these elections, because of some polls, like Americans voting for Clinton, but our media said that they are not they're scared to say that they're voting for Trump because they will do it, but now they say that is it true? How do you think?
Well, it seems like there was an element of that. I don't think it was so much that people were scared of saying that they were voting for Trump. My guess is that when you go out and poll people, you have to have some idea if they're actually going to vote. Voter turnout in the United States is not particularly high. It's gone up in recent years and went up in this election. But if you go out and you ask people how they're going to vote, you need to figure out whether they're going to vote. And so they use what they call a likely voter screen. And my guess is that Trump got a lot of people who maybe hadn't voted before, maybe voted only infrequently, so they weren't showing up in the likely voter screen. I think that's probably a more likely reason why the polls were off than it was that people were sort of embarrassed to say that they were voting for Trump.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor. Please do. Go ahead.
I was going to I'm sorry. I was going to just actually piggyback off of that. Like you said, sometimes with our polls, they come off as scientific, but sometimes you have that corner sack of people who've never voted before, or that corner sack of people who just refuse to answer who they're really voting for, because for a good period of time, a lot of people just did not want to say, I was voting for Trump, just because of all of the crazy stuff that he had coming out of his mouth.
Demetrius, weren't you one of those people?
Oh, yeah, I was one of those people. I'm still one of those people.
All right.
That just
so Demetrius, can I ask you, who did you vote for?
Well,
he still doesn't want to say.
Yeah, I really don't want to say.
You have to say.
But
What,
I am
Demetrius,
Trump.
you cannot not answer that.
People don't scare that they voted about Trump.
I mean,
Like this.
okay, I didn't vote for Trump. I was I actually I was going to cast my vote for Johnson until that whole Aleppo situation. So it kind of left me with one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
Because Jill Scott wasn't on our ballot, so
Yeah.
it left with either Trump or Hillary, and I wasn't voting for Trump, so I voted for Hillary Clinton in this election.
What was that moment like when you actually cast your ballot? What was going on in your heart, in your head? What?
It was like I don't know. There's a meme out of Jim Carrey when he got shot by 2 arrows in Ace Ventura: Pet Detectives, and he's just screaming at both legs. That's kind of how I was at that, just screaming. Because I was originally a John Kasich supporter, and that really kind of hurt me that he was the most to me credible pick inside of that primary, but he didn't get picked. I got stuck with Trump. It was just like I even gave him a chance, after the primary, like, okay, maybe he'll like straighten up, maybe he'll get his act together. But he still continuously said the same stuff over and over, and that's just some stuff that I can't agree with. Just because I have Latino friends who, they have family that were either illegal, and I know that not all illegal, or I won't say illegals, but Hispanics are rapists, because I know a lot of Hispanics are very, very hardworking people. So I just couldn't align myself with that. I have Muslim friends who I went to college with. I lived in Egypt for a while, so I knew of the Muslim culture and how peaceful they were. So I just couldn't get with him as an individual. I always tell people Donald Trump's message is awesome, but the messenger is awful. The message is great.
How is his message? Why would you say his message was great?
The message. Some of the stuff within the message is great. Building the economy back. Getting those politicians that's been in D.C. for a long period of time who's doing nothing. He had some great talking points inside of that "Make America Great Again." Not everything was great, but there was some stuff that was.
But that was tangential to what Trump was really saying. Trump was always about hitting hot button race and culture issues. From his opening speech, where he declared his candidacy, he talked about Mexicans coming over the border as being rapists. He talked about banning immigrants from Muslim countries. He repeatedly sort of talked about the sort of what he considered to be these sort of terrible conditions in African American inner city communities. He talked about treatment of women and so on.
I mean, but like I said,
what Trump touched into is that there are a lot of people out there who, because things are not going well for them, they want to assume that everything's not going well for everybody else. And Trump tapped into that. You listen to some of his speeches, he talked about America like it was an apocalyptic wasteland.
Right.
And there are people who want to view this country in that way, and it's because of ignorance. If he's winning tonight, it's because of absolute, total ignorance and willful ignorance. Hillary Clinton, she's done some things, such as supporting the coup in Honduras and supporting the Financial Control Board in my country, Puerto Rico, that is very detrimental to those populations. But she was working within a system of government that was at least attempting to help out people. Now, that system is completely flawed sometimes. I mean, that's the nature of government, because governments are made up of people. But what Trump wants to do is complete anarchy. And there are a lot of people, because they're ignorant of government, because they're ignorant of politics, because they're ignorant of the way that the adult world works. They want politics to be this inspiring or very specifically targeted at their community and helping them out, and is very selfish. And so they want to believe that it's this idealistic utopia is what politics is supposed to be, and it's not.
Jonathan?
It's the business of people working together and sometimes doing things that compromise even their own morals. And that is something that Hillary Clinton at least understands.
So Jonathan and Demetrius,
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that all people that are voting see this country as something. Well, voting for Trump sees this country as something horrible. They just see that the country
horrible
isn't
for
really
them.
going in the no. The country isn't going in the direction that they want it to go in, or that they thought the country should be going in. Because we can honestly say the approval rating of our Congress is atrocious because a lot of them do nothing. And I think Trump tapped into that.
So Demetrius and Jonathan, just give me a moment, because people are watching this online as well, and I'm going to show you some of the thoughts that we're getting as you're talking, as you're inspiring people. So you've got DJ here. He says he's not surprised at what he's seeing in terms of the election results coming through so far. He's having a huge amount of anxiety about the drive behind the Trump presidency, and he says #intolerance. But also, we have a very mixed bag of our audience here. So Algie is saying, go Trump, he's the new America. Now, before I get you starting up debating again, let me just ask you to just take a pause a moment, and we're just going to catch up with some new results via Al Jazeera. Have a listen into this.
It's 3% Barack Obama got through in the last race, so it's a hold for Hillary Clinton. A hold for Hillary Clinton with 13 electoral college votes. We put it on the map, add it all up so far tonight. Actually, we've got Colorado. We've got a call in Colorado. 49% for Hillary Clinton. So that's 9 extra for her as well. I got that in my ear just as we went there. 2 calls for Hillary Clinton. She is the projected winner in both Colorado and in Virginia. These are swing states. We put them on the map, the numbers start to stack up like this. 131 for Hillary Clinton, 168 for Donald Trump. Remembering, as I said before, the West Coast yet to call. They come in about 15 minutes, and those are all likely to go with Hillary Clinton. The race tightening once again, Peter.
Kamal, thanks very much.
So I'm really glad, Phil, I'm really glad you're here, because it helps us get up to date with some civics, which we kind of do every 4 years, and we remember, then we forget. Electoral college. Right. Like, I'm good every 4 years, and I'm like, hang on a minute, what's that mean again? I'm going to ask you a couple of things, and actually, sure. Kirsten and Victor as well, you're going to hear phrases in this coverage. You're like, what is that again? So just throw them at Phil. Phil will explain. First of all, electoral college. Go, Phil.
Sure. We have this crazy system of selecting our president where we don't just add up all the votes. What we do is we look at who won every state, and each state gets a certain number of electoral votes. They get a vote for every member of the U.S. that they have in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is apportioned on the basis of population. But then every state gets an electoral vote for each of the 2 senators that they all have. And whoever wins the popular vote in that state wins all of the electoral votes in that state. So even if you win a state by 1 vote, you win all of the electoral votes in that state. The only exceptions to that are in Maine and Nebraska, where they divide them up by congressional district, and then the overall winner in the state gets the 2 votes for the state. And it looks like Maine may actually split its electoral votes. We saw Nebraska do that in 2008. So it's a crazy, weird, confusing system where you can get these electoral college misfires, like we saw in 2000 when Al Gore won the popular vote. He got about 500,000 more votes than George W. Bush, but he lost the electoral college.
So if I ask everybody,
I have
Victor, go ahead.
Also a question about this. I know about your system, and you know that all Russian people, when they know about this system, they think that it's crazy, because all these voters are like famous politicians, and sometimes are even friends of some candidates. In our country, it will be like some oligarchs and friends of some politicians would like to vote for them or against them, like this. But I would like to ask one thing. This system was invented maybe more than 200 years ago, with the Philadelphian convent.
Our constitutional.
Yeah. So how you I saw this tweet Trump is New America. How you can enter New America with this old election system, like this really old election system?
Victor, that is a fantastic observation. That is so great.
I think
love
that tweet's funny in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Trump may yet win the popular vote. Right now, he's got about a 3 percentage point lead, but We got a lot of votes still coming in from big states like New York, California, and so on. So we'll see if that holds up. The other thing is Trump's drawing overwhelming support from older voters. So to say that Trump's the new America when you build it on an electoral coalition of older people, that's ironic to say the least.
Demetrius, I've got a question.
This is the old America.
Excuse me,
reclaiming
one
some
comment.
ground.
Old America.
All right.
Demetrius, yeah, go.
Oh no. Like I was gonna say, and that's the big issue that we're having right now is, people saying, oh, Donald Trump is the thing that's going to change America, make America great, whatever it is that they're saying. And it's like, how can you make it great when the people that are following you, they still live off of these old values? America is a changing country. America is always changing. The demographics of America changes. The people change. If you look at the older generation, they have a whole mindset of life compared to the millennials that we see today. The people in my generation, because I'm considered a millennial. And with millennials, no matter what side of the aisle we sit on, we always care about each other. That's the difference between us millennials and I guess you could call the voters of old. Because millennials, we care about each other.
Persons of old. I guess I get that.
Well, I guess in Singapore, there was also the question of, because looking at the election from here, it seems like, the system is very old. It kind of, all these electoral colleges, it kind of doesn't really make much sense to us. And also, so I have seen people talking about what will it take to break this kind of two-party dominance, because there was a lot of talk about, should people support independent candidates, third-party candidates? Is it just a wasted vote if you did? But then should there also be a push to kind of just break this two-party dominance? And I don't know, how likely is that ever to happen in the U.S.?
Well, it's happened before. We weren't always a country of Democrat, Republican. We had the Whig Party. We had the Progressive Party of 1912 that won an election. The Dixiecrats.
Yeah, but
right.
those were pretty small parties.
Yeah.
I mean, we stuck with the Democrats and the Republicans since the 1860s. I think the idea, it's exceedingly unlikely that one of the two main parties is going to somehow wither away and die and replaced by something else. I think it's probably next to impossible to have a multi-party system in the United States, given the way that we select senators, members of the House, governors, presidents by single-member districts where you can only have one winner. We don't have proportional representation where even if you only get 10, 15% of the vote, you still get some representation. And unless you get representation, it's pretty hard to make appeals to voters. That's why Gary Johnson's getting, 2% of the vote. Even if he hadn't fumbled the Aleppo question, he just wasn't going to win anywhere. He wasn't going to get any say in government. And so for most people, that just means it's a wasted vote.
And for many people,
Well,
and
I think Victor also taps into something, Victor does, that I think we just need to address, which is that the United States is an inherently conservative country in many regards. I mean, he's absolutely right. We're working off of a almost 250-year-old system and clinging to it with every dear life. How many times do we go back to speaking about our founding fathers, who came from a world that had absolutely no relation to the one that we live in now, and that is actually something I'm really not one for moral equivalence. I kind of hate saying that, oh well, Democrats and Republicans do every single thing the same, because that's BS. But this is one of those things. Democrats and Republicans are always talking about the founding fathers. The electoral system that we have is clinging to something that's very outdated. And I think that what that comes down to is that the United States has a problem with class. We talk about race a lot, and race is very prominent, but class is also a large part of it that people in the United States just don't want to address. Everybody wants to be rich. Nobody wants to screw themselves over if they ever become rich, and that dictates a lot of what they do.
All right, so Carly, guess we're getting people joining us as they're watching on YouTube and they're watching online, and they're like, who are these incredibly intelligent people talking about politics in the United States and from overseas? Jonathan, introduce yourself to people just tuning in. Who are you?
All right, I'm Jonathan Marcantoni. I'm the publisher of La Casita Grande Editores, which is a Latino and Caribbean press. I'm also a novelist as well.
Demetrius.
I am a political commentator, Republican, and I'm also an educator.
Victor.
Victor Levanov, political blogger and consultant.
And Victor, you are right now where in the world?
From Russia, yeah.
Yes, all right. Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Han. I'm a freelance journalist currently in Singapore.
All right, and Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Klinkner. I'm a political scientist at Hamilton College in upstate New York.
All right, that's just for everybody who's just joining that conversation. Everybody is also monitoring where we are in terms of the polls, the results so far. Demetrius, what are you looking at right now? Tell us, give us an update.
Well, right now I'm just looking, I'm kind of paying attention to the races. The numbers are kind of rising right now. We're seeing the percentages change. Right now we're looking at Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton's leading right now. She's losing in New Hampshire, which is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
A lot of people weren't expecting her to do that. So I think we were talking about it earlier with the whole breakdown of this election, and just the numbers that's coming in is kind of really shocking for me, as I'm sure it's shocking for many of our panelists that are watching as well. It's just kind of mind-boggling right now.
You're a Republican.
She's even losing Wisconsin.
Why are you shocked? You're a Republican. You're shocked.
Well, I'm shocked because I wasn't. If you follow the kind of the media this week, you know, everybody had already had this understanding of some of the states that she's losing, or that is really close, weren't meant to be close. So that's why I'm shocked about it. I'm also a little shocked about, you know, the Republican Party just losing 2 Senate seats today to Democrats. What, you know, I wasn't really expecting that as well. So that's why.
So far they've only lost 1.
I thought it was 2.
The Pennsylvania one is still they haven't decided that yet.
They haven't called it
But
yet.
she's in the lead, and it looks like she may do it. That's 2. But they were hoping to win the Senate, and that's pretty much off the table at this point.
Right.
The Democrats, that is. Republicans are going to hold the Senate.
What do
I
you?
mean, separate to watching the results, I'm also getting, like, you know, texts and messages from friends all in Singapore watching the results, going, you know, what's going on, or, you know, help us, basically help.
It's our
happening.
Brexit moment. That's all.
Yes, I'm very much having a morning after Brexit feeling right now, and it's basically everyone going help, and I'm cleaning up the language here. You know, the texts are much more colorful, but it's just like,
Thank you for that, Kirsten.
You know, help us. What is going on?
There was actually something.
Well, let me just add that the market futures are down. The S&P's down 4%, Nasdaq's down 4%, Dow futures are down 3.5%. So the markets are not responding well to this.
Right.
So,
to this this shift in what's going on. I was watching that earlier as well, and I mean, elections usually do that. It kind of scares people up. People are a little scared about investing their monies because you don't really know what's about to happen, who's going to be in charge. We all know that both candidates, you know, they speak good games, but things always change. So right now, everybody's probably a little shook up right now. Everybody's probably a little scared. They're trying to figure out what's going to happen. Yeah. So this is America right now. We're at that point of transition, and everyone is just sitting here and waiting. Nobody wants to invest.
Who brought up the word Brexit? Was it you, Jonathan?
That was me.
Yeah, there's something on Twitter Moments I have to show you. This is Nigel Farage, who led the campaign. For the UK to get out of Europe, and he was hugely successful. This was back in June, and then on Twitter it's got Nigel Farage gets a big history lesson. Nigel Farage basically said today for the United States, it's your Brexit day. It's the day that you split away and you do something dramatic. And then everybody piled on and said, hello, 1776 which was our Brexit, when we split away from the United Kingdom. History lesson, hello. But I think what he was meaning was, prepare for a shock, America. And people were kind of laughing at him earlier. Anyone laughing now?
Well, you know what? I want to touch on that. I think maybe what this election is really going to show people is how much of a bubble we live in when we get all of our media and our communication through social media. when we're tied to our Twitter accounts, we're tied to our Facebook accounts, and so we think that the whole world thinks the way that we do, because all our friends think the way that we do, and we're only hanging out with people who think exactly like us, who like the same things as us, who are voting for the same people, and so we think that's the way the entire world works. And our media has become balkanized in this way, and I think our individual lives have become balkanized this way. And it's vote, you know, these results, these are the polls that matter. And clearly,
Right.
this is showing that that there's two very separate Americas that are out
And
there.
to
That
be
people
and
are
to be completely to be completely honest, I think what's happening right now is Donald Trump's campaign. People have been saying this all week and this whole election. There's a big demographic of people that America just hasn't seen yet, and they haven't come out yet because they've been, you know, hidden away because they don't feel like America is what it was supposed to be, or they don't feel like America is where it should be. And now that they have a candidate that's kind of pushing that, they're coming out, and we're seeing it in these numbers because clearly, with you know, with how Michigan is going right now, or Wisconsin is going right now, nobody was expecting that to happen. Everybody was just like, okay, well, Wisconsin will end up leaning Democrat and end up being a, you know, a win for Hillary. And right now they're duking it out, literally with Donald
Yeah.
Trump ahead. So
Yeah,
clearly,
and absolutely. In 08 and 2012, both those states were called really quickly.
yeah, they were called for Obama as soon as as soon as about an hour
Those
out,
polls.
about an hour 30 minutes after they closed the polls. Right now we're almost into I guess 11 o'clock 11 o'clock
Yep.
Eastern Standard Time, and they're still counting votes and they're still trying to figure out who's going to win Wisconsin.
All right, be honest now, Watch Party. Who is feeling anxious and stressed right now?
I am.
All right. Let me show you something from the Pew Research Centre. Let me show you something, Kirsten, and then you can just run with it. A recent Pew Research Centre report found that many social media users describe their political encounters online as stressful, frustrating, and nearly 4 in 10 have taken steps to block or minimise the political content they see from other users. Kirsten, do you relate to that?
Yes, I think so. I think that's definitely, I think this probably would be the third big election I've seen where this has happened, like with the Singapore general election last year, where we thought that the ruling party was going to lose vote share, and then it won 10% more than it did the last time. And that was a shock as well. That was when everyone realized the echo chambers that we were in. And then it happened again with Brexit, and now it seems to be happening again. But I think I was really surprised because with Donald Trump, I kept seeing, like, he would say things that get increasingly more and more outrageous, or do things that are outrageous. And every time the news splash it, you're kind of like, oh, he's never going to be president now. You know, how could you say that about women and, you know, still lead in the polls? And he is, and it's really staggering.
All right, Cousin, let's just go back to some Al Jazeera coverage. We're just looking to see what's happening
Hillary
in
Clinton.
California.
It is not too early to call. The polls have just closed there. And here we go. Polls closing in California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, and Idaho. These four right here are all strong blue states. And I think we have a projection right now in California. Now, this is important. This is 55 electoral college votes, which we always knew would go to Hillary Clinton, but it's going to change the scoreboard significantly now. We're going to project Hawaii now as well with its 4 electoral college votes for Hillary Clinton. Idaho goes to Donald Trump with its 4. He is the projected winner in the state of Idaho, and Oregon and Washington still waiting to hear on those. Let's add it all up. It tightens significantly. Donald Trump, 201 electoral college votes. Hillary Clinton, 190, remembering still 2 more states to come here, which will likely go blue. The big news of the night, of course, is the way the swing states have gone. And I think we're going to cycle through some of those for you now. This is the biggest story of the night, without doubt. Florida, 29 electoral college votes. Donald Trump edges Hillary Clinton by 1%. We always said, and I'll keep repeating it, we said if Donald Trump wanted to win tonight, he needed Florida. He's got it. His path is wide open. Ohio, a very important win as well for Donald Trump, and a smashing win. Look at the 10% difference there in Ohio. That's very, very important too. 80% reporting there that projection is through. For Hillary Clinton, Colorado, 9. Still important for her, 48% to 44%, while New Mexico was more convincing, a 9% gap there for those 5 electoral college votes. So swing states being called, but the bigger swing states, or at least the swing states with more electoral college votes, being called in favour of the Republican candidate. Here's the race as it stands, 201 to 190. These other states which you see in grey, they are still too early to call. We're waiting to flip those into the yellow areas of too close to call. How important is North Carolina, Philadelphia and New Hampshire now? Incredibly important. They will decide it. Here's how the race looks. Donald Trump edging closer. He is 69 electoral college votes short of the 270 he would need to become the 45th president of the United States. More numbers as soon as we get them, Peter, because it is extraordinarily tight.
It certainly is. Kamal.
All right, we're going to start to wrap up our watch party, but Phil, what do you make of those latest results that we're getting so far?
It's very close. I think obviously Trump's doing a lot better than anybody expected him to. I don't think it's over. Hillary Clinton, she needs to hold on to Wisconsin, Michigan. Looks like she's got Colorado, New Mexico, and then she needs to hold on to Nevada. She can lose New Hampshire. She needs obviously to win Virginia, where she's leading. She needs to win Pennsylvania, where she's leading. I'm thinking this is going to, unless Trump wins either Wisconsin or Michigan, this is going to come down to Nevada.
Let me show you what we're getting online.
I think it's fascinating
Jonathan,
that he said she needs to win Philadelphia as opposed to Pennsylvania.
That's what, well, yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah.
If you look at the map
Does
of Pennsylvania, they're winning Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The joke is that Pennsylvania is Philadelphia and Pittsburgh with Alabama in between.
Let's do some final thoughts, because I know you all want to stand in front of whatever your source is and just peer at it for the next couple of hours. Demetrius, your final thought for our watch party is what?
My final thought is this is I'm looking at this election and we're going to be here all night. Unless Wisconsin, unless Donald Trump makes an upset in Wisconsin or Michigan, or unless it's called for Hillary Clinton, we'll be here all night. Because right now that race is pretty tight, and in both states, Donald Trump is actually winning.
Victor is sitting there in the middle of this conversation. He's stroking his beard, looking thoughtful. Share those thoughts with us, Victor. Final thoughts before we let you go.
I would better share with you view of Russian media on all these elections, like how we see this. At first, in online feed, which is dedicated to elections of USA, on popular news website, here is news. Like first news is that website about Canada citizenship and immigration has crashed. Yeah. And another one is like Trump is winning and peso is down, like this.
Wow.
So I'm just looking about like how our media see all this situation, yeah. And for us, it's like more economical world problem than a problem of one country. Because I heard that he was a discussion about some votes, some places in Senate, like 1 or 2 came to Democrats. Yeah, but for me, it's to hear it. It's like, oh my God, like world is changing right now. How you can count? How you can count places in Senate?
Sure.
It's just my view, and I think a lot of Russian people would think like this.
Thanks, Victor. Let me show you what's coming to us via Twitter as they've been watching our watch party. Maria says, "What is happening? Is this complacency, apathy? I am genuinely confused. It's like Brexit 2.0. #StreamElects. Let me show you this other one. This one is coming from Ian Wilson. America really showed its face tonight. It's not over yet, though. Kirsten, final thoughts for our watch party?
Yeah, I think for Asia, when they polled people in countries like China, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, South Korea, and Singapore, they were all hoping that Clinton would win, because they saw that they kind of feel that Clinton would be much better than Trump at ensuring regional security in Asia, because Obama has had the pivot to Asia and Asia Pacific. The South China Sea is an issue here geopolitically, And, you know, with Trump, I don't think there's any confidence that he either knows or cares. So from the Asian perspective, it really is kind of wondering what's going to happen now in terms of that pivot. And also for Singapore particularly, the Singaporean government has been very concerned about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, but that's for either candidate, because both candidates have said that they're not supporting it. So Singapore, the government at least, has been very concerned about that.
Professor, put your professorial hat on. Final thoughts for us, for the watch party.
You know, I think this is Brexit times 100. The consequences of this are immense for both American politics and international politics. And even if Hillary Clinton wins, I think it really sort of upends American politics. If she comes in, she's not going to have a Senate. She's not going to have the House. I think she's going to be an incredibly weak president. The Republicans are going to feel emboldened. It's, you know, as they say, buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride going forward, whoever wins.
Are you impressed by how international this election has been, how interested people have been from around the world? Let me show you this. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but this is a letter from, apparently, the people of Germany. Yeah. Dear Americans, go ahead, vote for the guy with a loud voice who hates minorities, threatens to imprison his opponents, doesn't give a bleep about democracy, and claims he alone can fix everything. What could possibly go wrong? Good luck, the people of Germany. Is that over the top?
No, no. I don't feel it's over the top. I mean, a lot of the times when I hear the rhetoric of Donald Trump, it reminds me of that history book that I read on World War II and the rise of Hitler and some of the things that he said. That's the thing that kind of scared me about Donald Trump a lot, is because when I was in middle school, I read several books on World War II and just Hitler, period. And a lot of the stuff that he was saying kind of reminded me of German nationalists and how that movement kind of got started. And that's what we're seeing right now. The fact that, I mean, through my social media, I constantly see, you know, my black friends in different rural parts of the country posting videos of being called the N-word, or you Negro, you N's are leaving, and take your Hispanic friends with you, and it's disgusting. And I'm like, that's not what this country needs to be. That's not how this country needs to be moving. We need to be moving forward with the progress that we have.
Sure. And just
don't see it right.
And Dimitri, just to be clear, I've seen this in lots of places. I've seen that Twitter. Dear Americans, this is from the people of Germany. I've seen it on Reddit. I've seen it by German friends tweeting out. So it's doing the rounds right now. Jonathan,
they recently did a play in Singapore about Hitler, but really looking at issues of nationalism and xenophobia. And I had a friend who was in the play who said for his research he had to read Mein Kampf, and he said what was staggering is that you read some of the things in Mein Kampf and you're like, in today's context, it doesn't even sound that outrageous because we are seeing it in the media all the time. And it's really, you know, the same rhetoric. But, you know, what we would have said, like, oh, Mein Kampf, that's a book, that's terrible, it's Hitler. But we're actually seeing it in the media all the time now because this sort of rhetoric is now mainstream.
These are really interesting times. Before I get Jonathan's thoughts, I want to play this for you from the Canadians. Have a look.
Hi, America.
What's up, America?
Hey, guys. We're just up here in Canada talking about how great you guys are down there, and we thought we'd just send you a little bit of a love note.
We're big fans. We like you guys.
We know you've got some really big decisions to make. But as you're thinking about your future, we just want you to know that
you guys are great.
You really are great.
You invented the internet.
You guys are going to get humanity to Mars.
Your national park systems protect some of the most beautiful places on Earth.
All your diversity and all your openness.
The fact that you're such a giving nation, over $250 billion a year is donated to charities.
So wonderful and warm and accommodating.
When things are tough, you fight to make them better. The disability rights movement in America is amazing.
You are infectious, entertaining.
Your gift to the world of jazz music.
Bluegrass music, R&B.
Biggie and pop. And
political and social activism.
Forging new paths.
You dream big.
Your quest to be the best creates the best.
A land of opportunity where anyone can be anything they want to be.
The vibrancy and diversity and the idea that we can all live together.
You know, America, I think you're already great.
You're great, America.
We all love you. and we think you've always been great.
Thanks, America. I think you're great.
Stay great, America.
Jonathan, do you need a tissue? Are you tearing up there?
Not at all. In fact, I don't know. That kind of seems like watching a really happy kids movie right after finding out that someone you love died. Not to be
Not
too
yet.
morbid.
Maybe it's too soon.
But,
too close to call.
You know,
who knows?
Yeah, it is. It is. But you know, I guess it's fitting to let the Boricua go last. We're used to going last, but that's because we're the best. So what
okay.
my final thoughts is, you know, I hope this election, even if Hillary ends up prevailing, whether or not, I hope it's a wake-up call to a lot of my progressive friends, and especially my progressive white friends, who a lot of them supported Jill Stein. Even Hector Luis Alamo, who was gracious enough to give me a spot on the show tonight, who isn't white, but he was going for Jill Stein. And it was all because, oh, well, Jill Stein is somebody we like. You know, we want somebody who's not of the establishment. We want the same feel of like a Bernie gave us. And here's the thing is that when you make a protest vote, when one of the opponents is an extremist, you give more room to that extremist. And those protest votes empower that extremist. And this is going to affect, if Donald Trump is president, the lives of all those brown and black people that you claim to give a crap about. And,
the only thing I'd say about that is
that,
I'm not trying to defend Jill Stein, but this election did not come down to Jill Stein voters.
No, it didn't. It didn't. I mean, actually, Gary Johnson got a lot more votes than she did.
A lot more votes.
But
Even
the sentiment, because there were probably a lot of those people who said that they liked Jill Stein and didn't vote at all. They just decided not to vote.
Yeah.
And this is what voter apathy does. It allows the extremists to get into power. It allows policies that hurt the very communities that progressives claim to care about.
Jonathan, it could be voter engagement. The voters who did not get out to the polls, who weren't infused, and they became infused. Maybe it's voter engagement, not voter apathy.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
And you know, there are those people who might have even voted for Trump and consider themselves progressives, but they just wanted to say F you to the system.
All
and
right.
that's very...
All right. Listen, I know you've got your sources there. You need to be watching this election to see how it all pans out. So thank you to Phil and Kirsten and Jonathan and Victor and Demetrius for being part of our stream watch party. We will be following up with you to see what happens. And thanks to everybody watching the watch party online. We will continue our coverage of election 2016 online at #StreamElects. But for now, thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.